Yeah.
And Nafi' is the Mawla of Abdullah ibn Umar. He was the servant, the one that Abdullah ibn Umar freed and who became a student.
Okay.
So he's the one reporting that to Imam Malik. Imam Malik is reporting these hadith from Nafi'. Nafi' was alive and in full age during the life of Abdullah ibn Umar, the Sahabi. You see? So that connection.
Do we have him?
Nafi', he's a narrator.
Yeah. We have a document by him.
No, he didn't write that. Right? He's the one that he served Abdullah ibn Umar. He memorized hadith and he reported. Now, those earlier writings that I told you about, those were referenced in these works. Right? Like in the Muslim Imam Ahmad, like I said, Imam Ahmad said,
if I reference and we have them, I think that's pretty good.
Good. Okay. So, I can also say the references from the Muslim Imam Ahmad, like the one I showed you, where he says, I saw the written hadith and compared it to what I heard. So those written works were then recorded and preserved in the later works as well. Yeah, right? So now that we know, for example, which were the Sahaba that had writings, and we know which scholars later took those writings and incorporated them, then no doubt that there is a chain written, which talks about looking at the writing of the Sahaba and oral, obviously. Now, if you look at Abbasiyya, the Khilafah Abbasiyya, many ahadith on the virtues of Amawiyyah still exist in those books, right? Like the virtues of Amr Abdul Aziz, right? The virtues of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, with his entire chapters, right? So if Abbasiyya were going to fabricate, why would they allow the virtues of those Sahaba to maintain in those books? You understand what I'm saying?
I think so.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a harebrained claim with no evidence. Now, what is their evidence of the fabrication?
It would start with, well, first of all, this is a contention. So they would say, if you have these sources, these earlier sources, they say you don't. So that would be one strike against them.
This is why I showed you the book.
Fair enough. Okay. So that's one thing. And then, like I mentioned, you have the mysteries, seeming mysteries. Would be when you look at the coins, when you look at the rock inscriptions, look at the archaeological stuff. We should probably see a different picture, given the Arab conquest in the 7th century, given what its spread was. We have a coin from 647 or so that has the word Muhammad on the front, boss on the back. It's very confusing.
Why is that?
Well, the explanation is, this is their explanation.
Go ahead.
Is, as you know from the beginning of ACP, there's a battle between the Trinitarians. Over time, the Trinitarians gain momentum.
Are you a Trinitarian?
I am. But for the purposes of this discussion, I've seen a lot of videos on the Trinity. It just kind of goes around in circles. I'll be willing to even concede that for the moment, but I am. For the purposes of this discussion, it's Trinitarian Christianity. That's easy to talk.
I want to talk about what you really are. It's not a philosophy.
But so they would say there's this battle, and Unitarian Christianity has strong. That's one of their centers. And so there's a battle between the Byzantines and the Persians. Okay. And it's kind of like a buffer state in the middle. So
Unitarian.
Yeah.
Where did that evidence from?
Okay. So let me just see if I can back up a second. Yeah. So when
this is where it falls apart.
No. I'm trying to just remember where I'm learning. Remember, I'm not the expert.
I got it. But this view, right, that claims that Arabia was a Unitarian kingdom, the buffer between Persia and Rome. Where's that evidence?
Yeah, I would have to send that to you as well.
Can you name a blog for a reference? I mean, I just want you to
that's good. What I've seen so far, it's pretty much just made up. No. I'm just not an expert on it.
So look it up.
What it would say is, you look at the points, now the word Muhammad is used in the philologist would say it's used in literature in Aramaic literature, but already Jesus in 750s AD. So
you know about the fragment of Arab conquest?
Let me show it just so.
I mean, again, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Show it. But the fact that there was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a Muslim Arab who conquered over the Christians, has been documented by Christian sources in the early second century. So that would actually prove their claim wrong.
No, but they say there's no. The name of Muhammad. There's no word Muslim, Islam, Quran, or Mecca in the
There's no doubt is in what we have in our literature, Islamic literature. Now, if we look at Western historians, from the well-known historians, let's say people who have written about the Prophet who are not Muslim, like Karen Armstrong.
Yeah, she's not even a Paul.
She's not Muslim.
I mean, just practically speaking.
Really? You think she's Muslim?
She's like one of the greatest.
I'm not I'd be more than happy if she was, right? But she's written about other religions as well. She's not just written about Islam.
I think she's an activist.
You think she's a what?
She's an activist. I don't know. I think she's, I don't know.
Interesting.
Maybe. I don't know.
And you and Karen Armstrong are not picking it up. So the fragments of Arab conquest, you can look it up. I mean, take a look at it.
A couple of them have some problems. Like one, Thomas the Presbyter. You know, it's got some historical inaccuracies as far as I understand.
But these are Christian documents.
Yeah,
So
that's the
document
thing. They would claim that no, they're not. They've been for one case, like Suda Ceballos was like a 16th century manuscript that was.
But it is not. The fragments of Arab conquest are definitely from late 7th or 7th.
Yeah, right. The one with Thomas the Presbyter, if I remember, it gets a couple of things wrong. It just really doesn't seem like it was either a later interpolation of a 7th century document, or it's like
But there is a document from Christian sources that does mention the Muslim army and their victories, right?
Yeah,
And in fact,
they would say
by the Prophet
yeah,
Muhammad.
there's tons
The
of
word
them. They
Muhammad is there.
say Hagarenes, they say Saracens, they say
So now,
yeah, not
having no, they had to be Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
some of them did. They didn't have
doubt.
ordinance.
Okay, but again, did the Christian Arabs call them Muslims or not? That's their right, right? So
Yeah.
if the Prophet Muhammad was the Arabian army fought the Christians, who were they? To claim that the Prophet Muhammad and the Muslim army were Christian, Unitarian Christians, where is any evidence for that?
In the face of outlandish attempts to try to discredit Islam, Christian apologists have made accusations such as stating that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't exist, or he didn't exist till later, or he was a Unitarian Christian, or so on, without any evidence. And you will see when I question evidence, nothing is put forward. We as Muslims, on the other hand, not only do we present a plethora of clear proofs, tons of evidences from the Quran, from Hadith, from historical documentation in the Kutub of Tariq, but not just those from Muslim sources, but also from non-Muslim contemporary sources that show that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and those that followed him from the Arab, the Muslims, they were a force that came and called towards the oneness of Allah and took on the Persians and the Romans. One of these is called the Fragment on the Arab Conquests, according to UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organizations, part of the UN. According to them, this document, the Fragment of Arab Conquests, is a Christian document that is dated to around 636. So that would mean around the Battle of Yarmouk, when the Muslim armies were defeating the Christian armies. No doubt that the Christians documented that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his followers, the Arab, who were following as the Muslims of that time, were coming and fighting with those that were oppressing the people of the Levant. Right? So what does it tell you? This is a Christian document that has been dated historically to the lifetime of the Sahaba, to that time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that shows that there was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Muslim army. This is clear evidence from Christian sources.